Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this fantastic open talk here in the Paris Space Hub, adapting space operations to new risks and threats with operational readiness and innovation at the heart of military operations. For this, I'm delighted to be joined by Philippe Steininger, military advisor to the CNES, Colonel Noël Farneau, Chief of Staff of French Space Command, or CDE, and we're expecting Nadège Roussel anytime now, Chief Engineer of Armament for the Defense Space System. So thanks, everyone. They'll talk, and then, of course, we'll take questions from the audience as well. This will be done in English, but if you don't speak English, obviously they can reply in French. Thank you, gentlemen. General, starting with you, as we're preparing for this discussion, I had no idea that France was the second biggest spender on space proportionally worldwide. Tell me about that.
Yes, that's right. I would say that France is a space nation in Europe. Historically, it has been the third country in the world to be able to launch a satellite, into orbit autonomously after the Soviet Union in 1957 and the United States in 1958. France succeeded in putting a very small satellite called Asterix into orbit in 1965. And since then, there is a constant effort produced by the French authorities in favor of space, because I think the French authorities have understood very early that space has a strategic dimension, and they understood the importance of space, especially for the military. And the result of this line is the fact that the French budget is the first one in Europe, the second one in the world per capita. It's roughly 47 euro per Frenchman per year devoted to space. It's very far from the first country, which is the United States, with more than 200 euros per year and per American devoted to space. But it's also very ahead of the average European number, which is roughly 21, 22 euro per European devoted to space. So there is this will to do much for space in France.
At what point did, initially, it was for, I guess, civil, it was exploration, it was curiosity. When can we say the defense element started becoming really important?
I think we started with a dual approach from scratch. I mean, right from the beginning. If you consider our first launcher in France, its name was Diamond. This launcher was a three-stage launcher, and two stages of this launcher were common with the first ballistic missile of our nuclear dissuasion deterrence force. So there were, from the beginning, from the General de Gaulle, the French president, the will to develop with a dual track space capacities in France, with a scientific approach and at the same time with a military approach. So we have this dual model in France active since the beginning.
Okay. Colonel, defense is at the core of everything France does in terms of space. When it comes to space, defense is crucial now.
Defense is paramount. I mean, we all know, and I do think that everybody agrees on that, space is a revolution. It generates, and we generate, massive opportunities in the civilian domain, but also in the defense domain. That's not new, no one questioned that. But as every opportunities, it brings risk and threats. And I will focus on threats, obviously, when it's about defense. We spent decades building satellites that were designed to be to operate in a very harsh environment, that had to be resistant to this environment, had to be reliable. But the game changer, and that will be my key message today, and the first takeaway that I want you to remember, is that space is no more a permissive environment. And that changes everything. And for sure, high-intensity conflict, the next one, will probably start in space. And I'm not the one who is telling you that.
Sorry, say that again. The next conflict.
Yeah, the next high-intensity conflict. Russia is telling that. The war in Ukraine started with what? With a cyber attack on the KSAT network deeply used by the Ukrainian forces. What was before the war in Ukraine? The direct ASAT performed, the demonstration performed by the Russian as a signal sending to everybody wanted to hear that, okay, we can do things to what is paramount for you, which is your defense. So what is key is, and this is a new change of the last 15 years, this is no more an assumption. We will have to be able to resist to the first hit. We will have to be able to operate under a threat, and that changes everything. Because I would say that space is used for multi-domain operation for something like 60 years. As the general said, we are celebrating this year the 60th anniversary of the military space in France. Because space is already paramount for the operation, positioning, intel, obviously, communication. I would say that we are capable of performing military operation without space. This is what we do for the nuclear deterrence. We need to be able every day at every moment. But we also have to admit that without space, this is less effective and far more dangerous.
So, well, you can both answer this. Are you saying, therefore, that you can now not win a conflict on the ground without using space?
I do think that space for space is one thing, but the aim of space is to improve multi-domain operation for what? To win the fight. Because when it's about operation, there is a winner and there is a loser. And space is by essence what we call the gateway to multi-domain operation and the gateway to collaborative warfare. And that is a real game changer. Because space will bring, with this connectivity, improved connectivity, the capability to dramatically reduce the time between the sensor, the effector, and the C2. And that will change everything. And if I can try to maybe sum up that with a use case, an operational use case, you can imagine one ground-to-air threat emitting, detected by a satellite in the air, a processing layer trying to identify the best intel satellites dealing with weather, obviously, to pick up the good picture, to send this picture to the appropriate effector, to the appropriate C2. And by the way, the effector can be a missile, which is already flying, and telling to this missile, okay, your expected target was there, it has moved, he is now there. And space will be the mean to implement what we call the decentralized C2. For the C2 to take decision during operation, we've got several layers and several authority who can take the decision. But when we are far from the enemy territory, sometimes you need to be able to take the decision in your cockpit, in your tank, in your boat, and to take the appropriate decision in the good time frame, assessing the risk not only for you but for the collaborative, for the collateral damage. You need to have the good level of decision, the good level of information. And space will be able to break the limits of our connectivity, which today are most of the time line of sight community. So now with space, you can either have, I would say, a very close connectivity, but you can have also a connectivity to a missile which is flying several hundred miles away. And that will change everything on my way.
Okay. General, you said earlier that I think the average French taxpayer pays 46 euros a year for space. I guess you have to convince them, one, it's worth it, and maybe they have to pay more. And you have to say that there's civil and defense are complementary. They learn from each other.
Yes, that's right. I would say that we have a singular model in France, which is a dual model, with CNES as a center of the model. CNES working for science, CNES working for exploration, but CNES also working very hard for defense. I think we'll talk of preparation, operational preparation in a while, and I will explain what CNES is doing on a day-to-day basis for the defense. But CNES is doing a lot for defense beside what it's doing for science and exploration or launchers.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, CNES has been created more than 60 years ago, as I told you, and since the beginning, it's working for the MOD by providing, by making available, I would say, capabilities such as a launching base, such as a network of ground stations, such as telescopes for space surveillance. But CNES is also making available to the MOD rare civilian skills. And we are doing this with a triple objective. The first objective is to prepare the next generation of space military assets, which means to implement an industrial policy aiming at making the sector of excellence in the space domain in France sustainable. That means also to carry on research activities and also to conduct experiments to validate these technologies. That's the first objective. The second objective is to bring an added value to the management of big space military programs, and we are doing it with our defense procurement agencies, the DGA, which is here today, and basically CNES is intervening in two different modes. In one mode, CNES is receiving project management delegation from the DGA, from the procurement agency, and it has been always up to now the case when it comes to develop an Earth observation satellite. And another mode of intervention is, for example, to assist the DGA in the management of a program. And the third objective is operational, is to operate and maintain in condition dual use and military satellites in low Earth orbit, and we are doing it with the CDA, with the Space Command in Toulouse from our centers there. So you can see that we are both an operator, a technical center, and that is what we are doing on a day-to-day basis for the MOD, and we have been doing that since the beginning.
Now, we'll come to you in a second, to our third guest. Sovereignty, security, obviously is so important. I guess, how quickly can you turn these projects into reality? I mean, can you fast track them? What are your, is it 3-year plans, 5-year plans for most of these projects? Or, because, I mean, time is of the essence.
We would like to be as quick as possible to develop a project. It's a requirement today. Things are evolving very fast, so we have to be very fast in the development of project. But we have also to find a balance. It's not worth developing very fast a project if it doesn't answer properly to the military requirements. So. For demonstrators, for example, we are trying to go very fast, and for example, we succeeded in developing a nano satellites in less than 3 years. A few years ago, this nano satellites was called Angels. It had been launched in December 2019, and it was a prototype of a line of nano satellites used today for other projects. Commercial projects like the Kineis constellation, for example, or a military project like the Yoda system that will be launched in a couple of years.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you two. Do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, just a small comment. I would say that time is our enemy. we need
Sure.
to be quick. But as General say, there are two different time frame. There are systems that require a long time processing, and there is innovation on the other hand. And the good trade-off is not easy to identify. What we need to do is identify the good innovation project that can bring as quick as possible open innovation that will bring operational capability. Space is by essence a dual domain, which means that in the armed forces we need also to change our mindset, because we will the danger is better is always better. Better is always better, but better is always more expensive. So identifying a dual project that can bring operational capability, even if this is not a perfect capability, because better is always better. But what we need is good enough capability in the good time frame. Because if we are late, the enemy will go faster than us, and if you go faster than the enemy, you win.
We're now joined by Nadège Roussel, who I remind you is Chief Engineer of Armament, Architect of Defense Space Systems and Connected Space Intelligence. Welcome, you finally got here. So we've touched a bit about France having the second biggest space budget proportionally. The threats are there. Any conflict now involves space. You're head of a program that involves many different aspects. Do you want to tell our audience a little bit about some of them?
Okay, so as you said, the armed forces can already use a various range of systems which are in service. So these systems are developed in the framework of programs which are managed by DGA in close cooperation with the French Space Command and CNES. So the systems which are in service include first of all, communication capabilities with Syracuse 4 satellites. They include signal intelligence capabilities with SARES satellites. We have an imaging system which is called CSO. You may know that the third satellite of this system was launched last March with the first commercial flight of Ariane 6. And, this program is led in cooperation, and 8 partners, European partners, have already joined the CSO community. And we're already preparing the next generation of these systems. Their name are Syracuse 5, Celeste, which will be the successor of Ceres, and Iris, which will replace CSO.
Yesterday I had a round table about Iris, and the idea is that, of course, it's European sovereignties at stake. What can you tell me about Iris that, from your perspective, as from the military, all three of you, does it really give you the connectivity and the independence that you've been looking for? Who wants to?
Iris Square. I told you at the beginning that connective was a core capability, a core requirement of the multi-domain operation. That would be really the thing that will speed up everything. So today, reaching this, I would say, reaching this capability alone in France will be probably too much expensive for us. So deeply we rely on this capability, because this is what will fully speed up our way to conduct operation.
These satellites that you're working on now, what's the game changer? They're lighter, they're flying in lower orbits. I mean, what makes them at the next generation?
Well, these game changers are the guidelines to prepare the technologies which will be necessary for this next generation. So we have already launched several types of studies, and we are the challenge is to have critical technologies which will have the maturity which will be required for this system. So we're working on new detectors in the visible bandwidth in order to have a better image quality. It's the same for infrared sensors. We are already working on TMGs in order to improve the agility of the satellites, in order to take more images on a given zone. And we're working on mirrors, very lightweight mirrors, for example.
And General, obviously you're working with Kines. Kines is also working with all its European partners in space. What's the role on the European level in all this? What's the European participation in all this? The Kines is obviously working with the other people.
You made the participation in IRIS program?
General.
Oh, IRIS program is a military program, so and it's just beginning. So I speak under the control of my colleagues. I don't think that up to now it's a European program. It's a national program. Of course, I think that, but again, I speak under the control of my colleagues. Like the previous programs, it could be open to cooperation with other partners. For example, CSO, which is the previous generation, has been open to European cooperation. Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, Sweden are among the countries participating to CSO, and it was already the case with Helios 2, the previous generation before CSO. So I don't know with IRIS, but it's an option. It could be, I think, open to the cooperation with some European partner, if there is a common interest in that.
When we created the space defense strategy in 2019, one of the key guidelines was foster partnership and cooperation, because space is big, space is hard, and we cannot do everything alone. So IRIS cooperation, as we did for CSO, is not defined yet, obviously, but obviously cooperation will be a key aspect of the design of the architecture, and will be a key aspect of the discussion that we will have with our main partners.
We're going to talk about innovations in a second, but before we do that, I have one question, because a typical space threat example, wasn't there an example a few years ago where the Russians tried to move their satellite close to a French one to read it?
Actually, that was the root cause of the space defense strategy. It was in 2018, when Russian satellites get close and closer to French military satellites, at least close enough for the Ministry of Defense at the time, Madame Parly, to declare this action as unfriendly, and led to all the process behind, with President declaring space as a warfighting domain, and asking the Ministry of Defense to decline and create the space defense strategy. With the main goal of this strategy is maintain our freedom of access to space and maintain our freedom of action in space. And he decided at the time to launch the space defense strategy with 3 main guidelines. The first one is obviously take into account these new threats, and decided to create the Space Command, which is fully in charge of managing the operation in space. The second aspect is probably something that we will address later, is remodel our industrial tools to get faster and to outpace in the technology domain. And the last one, I thought about that, foster an international partnership, because space is hard and space is big, and we need everybody to deal with this domain.
Interesting. Let's talk about innovations. Nadej, why don't you tell me about the innovation side of what you're doing, your department's doing now?
Sorry, but
Tell me about the innovation side of what you're doing now, some of the innovations.
As you explained, the strategy of 2019 has led us to launch a new program which is called aimez, which means action and resilience in space. And we have launched a lot of demonstration activities to prepare this program. I don't know if my colleagues have already talked about Yoda and Tutatis. No? So we are working on two types of demonstrator. One is dedicated to action in space on low Earth orbit. It is called Tutatis, and it includes two satellites. One which will have surveillance capabilities, and the other one which will be more maneuverable and that will have action capabilities. Another demonstrator is called Yoda, and it aims at preparing action capabilities on geostationary orbits. We have delegated the contracting activity of this demonstrator to CNES, and the platform is provided by Emeria, which will be responsible for the integration.
Why is the lower Earth orbit significant? What does that add? What's the benefit of being in lower Earth orbit for this kind of satellite?
In fact, the kind of orbit depends on the satellites that we want to protect. Either observation satellites on lower orbits or communication satellites on higher orbits.
I would say that is acting in a low orbit is a part of the answer, because obviously I don't know if the ideas that you wanted to talk about, but how can we defend constellation and deliver effects against a constellation in a low orbit? So I would say that space operation is a part of the answer, and we are working on a different way to deliver effects to lower orbits that can come either from multi-domain operation, that can come from the ground, that can come from a different domain, cyber, for example. So acting in a low orbit with Tutatis, which is a demonstrator of the action in low orbit, is a part of the answer. This is also a way to send a signal, to say, okay, we're here, we are present, we are capable, and again, this is a part of the answer.
Okay. General?
Yeah, just one word on this kind of missions. Consisting of performing what we call RPOs, remote proximity operations, around a non-cooperative target. It's brand new in Europe. We have never been able to do that since now. The Americans, the Chinese, the Russians are able to do this kind of missions. In Europe, it's going to be very new. It's for the first time the European capacity to perform this kind of mission is going to be shown.
And this is the reason why Yoda and Tutatis are either technical demonstrators, but also operational demonstrators, because they will work together with scenarios that we have designing to train operators, to assess our concepts, to see if they are good, how we can improve them. So there is really these two lines: either demonstrate the technology, but also demonstrates our operational capabilities.
And here is another domain in which CNES is playing a central role, as the armed forces, the French armed forces, has almost no operational competencies back in 2019 when the Space Command was created. CNES is involved in transferring some of its competencies, operational competencies, to the military. And that's the reason why we are implied in the training of military personnel since 6 years.
And that was the question I was going to get to. Obviously, you have great people on the defense side, but you need people on the civil side who can help you with these innovations. Do you have the staff you need? Where do you find people to work on this? And how do you keep hold of them? Because they can go anywhere. Nadège?
Well, in fact, At DJI, we have small teams working in the space domain, and we also rely with our partners, CNES and CDA, and we all work together to have the right persons to prepare the new projects.
Your budgets have gone up. Are you hiring more people now, by the way? This is a chance to reach out. Or do you need extra people?
Regarding the Space Command, I would say that we have a roadmap, including also increasing the number of people who will work in the Space Command. I would say that we don't have difficulties to recruit people because space is an environment that is sexy, I would say, and people love working on this topic. And I would say that the space operation layer is also something which is attractive. And when it's about manning, CNES is a major partner, either on training, but also space is a dual domain by essence, in space, but also on the ground. And so we also need to identify the initiatives that will work for a civilian domain, how we can use them in the military, how this cooperation will improve our resilience. So we have a more than close partnership with CNES, which is essential in the Space Command roadmap.
Yeah, industry is also important. It's the third pieces of the system, and CNES is also playing a bridge between industry and state-owned capabilities. An innovation, for example, I would like to mention two dual-use constellations which are going to bring very interesting services to the military, and in which CNES is or has been playing a central role. And the first constellation is Kineis, which is going to be fully operational at the end of the summer. And the second one is CO3D, which is going to be launched next month from Kourou, French Guiana. So Kineis is a constellation of 25 nanosatellites, which is offering IoT, what we call IoT, Internet of Things, and maritime surveillance global services with a 15 to 10 minute revisit time. And CNES has been instrumental in the development of the bus used in these constellations, also in the operational center of Kineis. And CNES also has played a very important role in the deployment of this constellation. And I think it's a very interesting constellation for the military because it will be possible with this constellation to follow anywhere on Earth, anytime, an object or people carrying a very small tracker. So it's, for example, the ability for the military to have a supervision of logistic flow capability, and also what we call a blue force tracking capability, follow the exact position of your soldiers, for example, and so that you can identify the good guy and the bad guy in a battle. So that is a very interesting constellation. It's a civilian constellation, but it's a real dual-use constellation in which CNES has played an important role. And the second one is CO3D. CO3D is a constellation of 4 satellites designed and produced by Airbus Defence and Space. As I told you, it will be launched next month. This constellation has a dual mission. On one hand, it will perform Earth's observation with a 50 centimeter resolution, which is not bad at all. And on the other hand, it will produce a digital model of the surface of the Earth. So it's going to be very interesting for the military in order to bring them this kind of data required for the navigating system of cruise missiles, of terrain following radar for our combat aircraft, but also to have a very clear idea of a geographic area in terms of 3D. That is very interesting for the military. And what is interesting in this constellation also is the fact that we had a PPP, a private-public partnership with CNES and Airbus in this project. and we helped the industry to produce a satellite which is, I hope so, will be very competitive on the market. That is a very important point.
I would like to insist on a main role of GGA. In order to perform our programs, we not only need expertise in the space domain. What is important is also to master the interfaces between the different components. For instance, when we speak about aimez, the program dedicated to action in space, it will interconnect different components. The space one, which we'll have already talked about, but also sensors in order to have a situational awareness. And it will also rely on an information system which will offer command and control functions for the space command in order to conduct space operations. And this ability to have a coherent global system is very important, and DGA plays a major role in order to ensure this coherence.
Are there any questions from the audience, by the way? Any questions? Sovereignty, space, defense are the three key issues at this salon. That must be music to your ears. Are you saying to yourselves, finally, they've listened to us? Did you understand? At this salon, the big themes are sovereignty, security, space.
And duality.
And duality. Yeah. So are you saying to yourselves, at last, they've listened to us?
I would say, just in a nutshell, today, space is in our life. Space is paramount for military operations. So there's no defense without space, and there's no space without defense. And that's it.
That simple. Go ahead.
I would say that in 2019, when we decided to create the Space Command, we also decided to change the name of the Air Force, which is the Air and Space Force. And so this is a very good thing to have here at Le Bourget, a space hub, because as I told you, space will play a prevalent part in the way we plan and conduct air operation, but not only air operation, multi-domain operation. And space has its place at Le Bourget because, as the General says, this is a strategic domain. This is a strategic domain that will bring strategic information, but that will also bring strategic effects, strategic signaling, and that's paramount when it's about military operation.
And to conclude, I would like to say that space is a domain in which more and more actors play a significant role. In the industry, we rely not only on historical companies, but also we use the new approaches offered by New Space. Another aspect is that Europe plays a major role now in this domain, so we have to have a global approach of all these contributions.
Terrific. All three of you, thank you so much for helping me prepare this, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this for a long time to come.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you, everyone.